so much information here. And again, it sounds like to me, a lot of these pastors who were brought into this call or this meeting, it wasn't done in an official government capacity. It's people who are within the government who are also believers themselves who said, we need to get the word out in advance of this so that pastors can be ready. Am I reading that wrong, or is that how you're reading it as well?
I think it was a unified effort, but the people that came to meet with us were more former, military operatives, people that have done research, and they've done a lot of activity in some of the UFO disclosure community up into the highest echelons of it, and they came with proof to show us that they were a part of that. Some of the things that they really showed us, Ben, were shocking, things that I didn't know how to wrap my head around. They had images of entities and things like this. They actually did show it to us on their devices. We were not allowed to have our devices functioning in these meetings. It was actually a rather lengthy meeting in Tennessee, and I was there with the person you just showed a little bit ago, Bishop Alan DiDio, and we were in that meeting together. And I'll tell you, they did go into a lot of material, but here's the big thing. The big takeaway is what they were concerned about was the coming deception with it. And why do I say deception? The deception is that they want to supplant or replace our image of God with a form of enlightenment. This is where the narrative is trying to go. So there's going to be a lot of things that begin to show up. This is what they told us. I even asked them about the lizard people. I said, is this really true? Lizard people? And they looked at me and said, our reports tell us yes. Now, I don't know what to do with that, but I was in this meeting and they said a lot of things that were pretty substantial. But the coming deception, Ben, what they're talking about is they want to replace the deity of Jesus for enlightenment for humanity. In other words, they want to say Jesus is just one of these star people that's coming down. This is the narrative that they're going to use through disclosure, through we're not alone in the universe, through these are multidimensional beings that make an appearance, and then will come information. And the narrative that we heard through this whole thing was this: the government has heard a lie. The government believes the lie, but the government is going to tell the people what they believe to be true. And so when you see a lot of congressional people talking about what they've heard and seen, like Burchett, who I really have great respect for, I believe they've truly seen things. I have great respect for Anna Paula. And I believe that there is some very serious things that are going on, and they've seen it. And yet the things these agents were telling us, and when I say agents, they were just operatives that were former military, they had access to a lot of things. They revealed these things, and I'll tell you, by the time we were done, we looked at this and thought, this fits the biblical narrative. This fits last days deception. This fits what the Bible calls the days of Noah, that just as the days of Noah were, so will it be right before the coming of the Son of Man. And I believe this is where we are. So the question is this, what does this mean to us? And what should we do about it? As Christians, we need to drive deeper into the Lordship of Jesus Christ. We need to read our Bible till it's talking back to us. So when these things begin to appear, or when there's a disclosure that happens, and it's absolutely overwhelming to our five senses that there's non-human intelligences walking around or whatever they present, we have a good answer for it. It doesn't shake our faith. And I'm reminded of this. In Luke chapter 21, verse 11, it says this, Ben. It says that in those days, there will be fearful sights. Luke chapter 21, verse 11, it says fearful sights will come down out of the heavens. Fearful sights. The Greek word for fearful sights is phobotron, and there's only one interpretation of the word phobotron. It means monsters. It could be translated that in the last days, there will be monsters. And we see fearful sights coming out of the heaven. I believe the Lord has forewarned us so we can be forearmed in our faith, not be led astray by any strange or unusual doctrine, but simply recognize that it's a last days deception. Even if it's tangible and empirical, we got to remain with Jesus as Lord. And that's the important thing.
All right, let me shoot off some rapid fire questions for you about this meeting, okay? And I know there may be some things you can't say. I hope there aren't. I hope you just tell us everything. You said
try, Ben.
There are some devices that they showed you images on, correct?
Yeah.
And did they show you multiple looking or different kinds of beings, or did they all look the same? Was there more than one? Were there several?
It was on a cell phone, images on a cell phone, showed it to me. And when they showed it to me, there were multiple images, and they scrolled through them. And it was images of creatures in the woods. Now, it's somebody showing you pictures. You don't know what you're looking at other than, my goodness, if that's not AI, that is very convincing. And what I saw was tentacle-like creatures, really tall creatures. Some of them are translucent. You could not see facial features, more like figures that were very tall, very lanky, and there was a number of them. And they had long appendages. And I saw a number of those in these images. And these individuals had said they'd had firsthand contact with some of these issues. I asked them, does this apply to the Miami Mall incident that we experienced,
Yeah.
well over a year ago? And they began to say, well, there is information that ties into this. They didn't go into it, but it does seem that there are correlated normalities, or I should say connected issues in that same narrative.
In terms of these creatures, did they indicate whether or not those creatures, any of them, are in captivity? And how are they getting this information about what the narrative these things would share with me? Have they communicated with them?
Well, they have not. One person did communicate with something, and he really asked that we not tell who he was or what had happened, but he had a direct communication of one of these things where it jumped on him physically. He was in somebody's home. It appeared like a light being came down and all this. And of course, this is his account of it.
Sure.
And he just began to tell us. And of course, we're staring at this going, okay, like how do you process that? So I said, I just want to quote my friend L.A. Marzulli, let's rebuke first and ask questions later in the name of Jesus. But they began to say these things are being summoned on one level by people that believe they are higher intelligences, light beings, that they're calling down out of the cosmos or out of the other dimensions.
No,
Other
it's not
people
a cross.
believe that they're
Where
just
is
purely
that?
demonic, which I do believe these are demonic things that we're facing. But what they also said that was staggering, and I thought this was interesting, this will help the audience. They said 90% of what we're seeing in the skies right now is high-level technology. We're seeing high-level government technology, and they
like
began to
Iron
say,
Man.
we've researched it, we have data on this, and they began to break it down for us, high-level government technology. But there's a 10% that there's a lot of
Jonathan, what
real
in
that's
the
happening
world?
that's unexplainable. And a little bit of a caveat that's very interesting, and I don't know what to do with this, but when we're leaving this meeting, the day after this, I was flying on a plane with a number of my team. We looked out the window and orbs appeared. We took video of the orbs, and they're flying somewhat near the plane. They were with us for 30 minutes, and I'll tell you, that's never happened to me before. And I started thinking, if this is happening to me, if this is somebody who's somewhat read up on this, just a little bit, not super up on it, but if it happened to me, it made me concerned. I thought about, what about the average churchgoer, the average individual in America that suddenly they're presented with this type of experience? It could be pretty shaking.
In terms of the reptilian part, any of the images that you saw, did they look reptilian? I know you kind of described the
not.
figures. You did not see that?
I did not see reptilian.
Interesting.
I didn't see anything reptilian. They were translucent. There was very elongated arms, tall. Some of them were standing in the woods, and it was in evening.
Did they say if these things communicate with speech? Do they speak English? Do they speak in verbal ways that we can understand?
Jonathan, what the heck is that?
They got
dude?
into that a little bit. They began to say they were beings
almost
of
look like a
light,
person,
that
right?
some of these higher level UFO individuals, they will call them down or communicate with them through meditation and call them right into their space. And
then
they
when it turns,
alleged
it doesn't.
that
It's
some of
really
them
odd.
meet with these light beings regularly. And when they meet with these light beings, they get data, they get information from them. And that is the source of why they believe they need to tell humanity these are not malevolent, evil things. These are good things. And I believe that is where the deception is, because we know 1 Corinthians talks about the devil can transform himself into an angel of light. And we've got to be those that are discerning what is an angel of God. Are you on God's team, or are you on the devil's team? What kingdom are you of? And just because these things are appearing doesn't mean they're good. Even if they appear with benevolence, it doesn't mean they're good. We need to know, are they of Jesus' camp or some other camp? And that is why we got to evoke the name of Jesus, use the name of Jesus when we run into this stuff. And I believe that will begin to tell us if they're good or nefarious. And you know what? If people say, I'm meeting with an alien, it's like, well, let's meet with them together and let's use the name of Jesus and see if it holds up.
Interesting.
Because I believe this is the coming deception.
Yeah, let me ask you this too, though. You said they are meeting with them, and they believe. Who is the they who's regularly or often meeting?
I can't name them because I promised I wouldn't name the individuals, but they are direct individuals who speak to the president. They speak to the government. If I were to name drop some of them, it would pull the mask off these people.
But we would recognize those names probably.
You would, yes.
And these are people
would.
who
Biggest names.
regularly meet with these beings that reveal themselves to them.
That's correct.
And those people who are in high positions of government and power now believe that these things are who they say that they are the creators.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Ben, it's not governmental leaders that are doing this. These are people in the UFO community, the high-ranking ones that advise government leaders that are
Got it.
meeting with light. And then
Interesting.
they go and relay this, and they're intelligent. They have wonderful information. I have nothing but good things to say about them, except I do believe they're meeting with angels of light, and they're being deceived by them. And that is the narrative that they want to bring about. And they will begin to say, and this is part of the reason they disclose this to us, is that Christians or believers in Jesus will be the ones that are standing in the way with their narrow thinking, only calling these things demons. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, this is demons. And when we look at this stuff, we got to recognize we're going to be told that we are narrow minded and we are standing in the way of enlightenment from these light beings that want to come through. And they're going to use the charade and smokescreen of whether it's lizard people or things coming down from the heavens or mass events taking place in the sky through Project Bluebeam. These are the things that we were really disclosed to and talked through. And there are many podcasters and leaders claiming to be Christians, and really they have a mixed agenda to get this esoteric ideology out to the masses.
Fascinating stuff. Joseph, thank you so much for being here. And please come back and talk to us again on this, because I'm sure there's going to be more disclosures very soon. Thank you, sir.